Hello and welcome to How to Learn a Language. Yeah, the name kind of says it all. I'm Lindsay from Lindsay Does Languages, and I'm here to help you learn languages better, any language, any level. On this podcast, you'll get jargon-free linguistics insights to level up your fluency, practical mindset tips to tackle those inevitable learning wobbles, personal language diaries where I share my own progress and honest experiences, and an exclusive peek behind the scenes of language life. My coaching program that helps people speak fearlessly and intuitively by taking control of your learning without pressure or one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter methods. If you're ready to break free from perfectionism and finally start speaking the language you want, you're in the right place. Want to get started right away? Head to lindsaydoeslanguages.com/free video for your on-demand video training. All right, let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to How to Learn a Language. Today, we're talking about fossilization because it's something that can happen kind of secretly and unexpectedly to any of us. And we don't really talk about it enough, but it can have this huge impact and really get us down a bit. So we're going to discuss it. Now, last month in this series on the sort of linguistics of language learning, we talked about code switching. So check back in the feed for that episode. But I feel like this is a really good follow-on from that. So code switching, very, very brief summary, is an intentional or unintentional mix of languages that happens for all sorts of reasons. And it can happen in language learning too. I even encourage it when you're practicing, right? And you want to keep going to write the English word in capitals or whatever it might be, to then be able to come back and check later to correct things, right? But we cannot leave it there. There's more to the story. So we need to be aware of fossilization so that we don't get stuck when we do that with our code switching and language learning in what is called interlanguage. Let me explain. What is fossilization? Fossilization was coined by a guy named Larry Selinker in 1972. As the name may suggest, it's when your language fossilizes, aka gets stuck where it is. So even if you're still learning, you're adding new vocab, you're getting better kind of on the surface level, some things aren't improving. Essentially, the main reason, and we'll dig into more about why this happens, but one of the big things is if there is mistakes that you are making in your new language that are not stopping you from being understood, chances are you're not correcting them. No one's correcting you. You're communicating well enough, and so you don't realize the mistakes. So that bit of language freezes, right? It fossilizes and it gets frozen in time. It does not improve. And that is really a lot of what we're talking about here. If you can communicate effectively, you're being understood, there's a reason that people aren't correcting you. It's because they understand you. Why does it matter? Well, the longer that we go without correcting these mistakes, the harder it is down the line to get it right, to sort of rewire your brain essentially to the correct usage. And if you're aiming for a high level of fluency, or you want to pass as a local, or you want to pass an exam, all sorts of errors that are going to give you away. This is them. This is the stuff that gets fossilized early on and doesn't get improved upon. These are the pieces. So we want to iron out these errors for any of those reasons. If you want to go to a higher level, if you want to do tests, if you want to really fit in a place in terms of language, that's why this matters. So big one is language interference. What does this mean? Well, Selinker also coined that term interlanguage that we heard at the start, and it's to do with that. So interlanguage is essentially the bridge between your language, your first language, your native language, and the language that you're learning. It's the language that you speak when you're in the process of learning. So the odd words here and there might be thrown in from your first language or another language that you know, or perhaps that you stick with a familiar grammar structure from your first language because you don't yet know what it should be. So you're just putting in the new words in that new language into the structures that you're familiar with, right? That's what interlanguage is. And everyone's interlanguage will be slightly different because our first language, our learning experience, our linguistic repertoire of all the languages that we know, all of this stuff is different too, which means that there's no one interlanguage between English and Spanish or between Spanish and French. It's always going to be unique. It's kind of like a fingerprint, right? For everyone that is learning a language. But if we're able to communicate in this interlanguage stage, this bridge stage, which typically we are on some level, then we can very easily fall into not checking and not correcting our language here. And that is when we get fossilized. So this is the big one, but as I said, there's always plenty of other reasons. So a few things that may impact this beyond that age. Yes, I'm a big proponent that we can learn a language at any age. There's no cutoff point. But of course, there is naturally a decline in our putty-like quality of our brains, which may make it harder to retain new languages, new structures. So don't take that as me saying, you get old and you can't learn languages. Absolutely not. Like, just keep going, keep doing the thing. There's no harm in it, right? But of course, if we go from an 8-year-old to an 80-year-old, there is a decline in the way that we take stuff in. Of course, there is. Lack of correction. So if you're only self-studying without review, without people, or the people that you interact with are very, very polite and they're not correcting you, then that's no good. It's why I include inside Promptly the how to self-review training, because that is essential. If we're going to be using Promptly to write more, to speak more, to get more solo practice, we need to get better as well at that skill of self-review. So inside Promptly, that training's there. It's inside Language Life as well. lindsaydoeslanguages.com/promptly to find out more if you want to get in on that. Bad learning. So dodgy resources, not enough natural listening, no practice. All of these can be things of the past when you learn how to learn languages. That's Language Life. That's 101. That is sprinkled across everything that I make, because we don't need to learn languages badly anymore. We can do this so much better, which is why I care so much about teaching how to learn languages. And then finally, comfort zone. So whether it is the comfort of the plateau, of avoiding leaving your comfort zone because of anxiety, whether it's low motivation, whether it's fear of mistakes, you can't fix what you don't try to fix. So if you sort of hold yourself back because you feel safe where you are, then that could also be another reason for fossilization. So all sorts of things. And as I've been saying some of that, you might be thinking, yeah, I think that's the one that it is for me. I think it's a combination of this and that. Completely fine, right? But how can we avoid this? Because as you can see by now, we don't really want this, right? It may have happened a bit. It may be on the cusp. You may not be at this point yet. Whichever it is, there's a few things we can do to help either avoid it or overcome it if it's happened a bit already. We're going to go through 3 of these today. First up is self-review. I mentioned already the training, how to self-review inside Promptly and inside Language Life, and that is there because it is an essential skill to develop. Now, essentially, this breaks down into 3 steps. We have solo self-review, we have tech-aided, and we have human-aided. All are helpful. I won't go into all of the details of it today. Essentially, we need to get better at self-review if we're going to overcome fossilization. Next up, curiosity, not critique. This is one of my core principles of language learning. Rather than beat yourself up when you spot a mistake or when you feel like you're not good enough, approach those feelings and those thoughts with curiosity, not critique. So rather than, I'm still making that mistake, what an idiot, it becomes, I wonder why I'm still making that mistake. Let me see if there's a fix that I haven't tried yet. Can you see the difference? So we're noticing it still. We're not ignoring it. We're not trying to avoid the mistake altogether or just completely put it in the corner and forget about it, sweep it under the rug. No. We're still aware of it and we're still acknowledging it. But the way that we acknowledge it, that's what's different. It's curiosity, not critique. And then finally, mistake goals. Now, what I love about mistake goals is that it gets you to actually notice mistakes. Again, same thing. We want to notice how we feel. We want to notice mistakes. It's all about noticing. You start to pay attention when you do this, when you set yourself mistake goals. So you're developing that skill of self-review here in real time as well, right? So say to yourself something like, I'm going to speak or I'm going to write until I make 5 mistakes. Now, if you spot the first 5 mistakes that you make, if a teacher were to be listening in and hear those same 5 mistakes and think, they've made 5 mistakes, great, well done, you've spotted them all. But if you miss a few, it doesn't matter, right? Because you'll be then speaking or writing more until you do spot 5. So even if you think, I don't know what mistakes I'm listening out for or looking out for yet. How will I even do this? How will I set myself a mistake goal if I don't know what my mistakes are? This is how. And you get to a point where you feel like, I must have made 5 mistakes by now. And so at that point, you can pause, you can go back, you can review, you can have a read, you can have a listen to what you've done and think to yourself, okay, yeah, this doesn't feel right. Let me just check that. And then you'll begin to spot. So this idea of mistake goals is really helpful to get into that habit of self-review, especially solo and tech-aided at first. Now, if you want to be sure to avoid fossilization, I do feel as well that this is where tech-aided or human-aided self-review really, really comes in to catch things that you miss on your own, because you're not going to necessarily spot all of the mistakes that you make on your own. That's kind of the point. You don't know the mistakes that you're making. That's why they become fossilized. But these techniques, these ideas, this activity essentially of mistake goals is a really good way to get started with spotting this stuff. Now, if you want to actually follow on with this and to make language learning quick and easy, to learn how to learn languages, then it's not as hard as it sounds, and it works for any language. I've got your next step for you. You can get it right now at lindsaydoeslanguages.com/free video. This is my free video training. It's called How to Finally Learn That Language. And I mentioned curiosity, not critique, being one of my core principles of language learning. I'm going to share with you in this video 5 altogether, including this. We'll go into this one in a lot more detail, so you have all 5 to start you off. And I think you're going to love this. If you have not seen this before, you must check this out. lindsaydoeslanguages.com/free video. And that is it for this episode. If this has sparked something for you, I would love to hear about it. You can email me, lindsay@doeslanguages.com, or share this episode with a friend who's working through something similar. And I'll be back soon. Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to How to Learn a Language. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you're ready to take your language learning to the next level and speak with confidence without the pressure or perfectionism, then check out Language Life. You can find out all the details and join at lindsaydoeslanguages.com/LL. And if you want the first free step today, head to lindsaydoeslanguages.com/free video to get started with a fresh way to learn languages. Until next time, stay fearless, stay curious, so you can learn languages your way.